Hey, welcome back to my channel. I'm Erica and I appreciate you being here today. We are going to talk about my July wrap up, even though admittedly I don't have that many books to wrap up from July, but I feel like I have a reasonable excuse. I was gone for about 2 weeks. I went to San Diego. I got to go to Comic-Con as part of that. So admittedly, reading was not top of my priority list for July, but I did get some done. We'll talk about that. First, I am going to talk about a couple of things from like Comic-Con, the other stuff I was doing in July. If you want to jump ahead, like you don't want to hear anything about all of that, even though there is going to be some mild book related stuff for Comic-Con, but if you're like, look lady, I'm just here for you to talk about what books you read, I totally understand. I'm going to put chapters in this video. I put chapters in most of my videos. Feel free, look at the chapters, jump to the part where I'm like done talking about the other stuff, and we will get into the book reviews for what I did actually read. For the rest of you, I'm briefly going to talk about some Comic-Con stuff because I had such a good time. It's my first time going to the San Diego Comic-Con. I've wanted to go for a really long time now, probably almost 20 years now, and it's just never been something I've been able to do, and I know people try for years to get badges. They aren't able to, so we were really lucky, my friend and I, to be able to get them like the first time that we tried. We got them for 4 days. It was so fun. I can't even explain how good of a time the convention was. Everyone was so nice there, and it was just a really welcoming, fun, comfortable place to be. Like, everybody there just wanted to talk about nerdy stuff with me. I'm like, I have finally found my people. Turns out they've been hiding at Comic-Con conventions this whole time. So I did have an awesome time. Unfortunately, I know, I went in with like big plans to get try to get some autographs, try to get some arcs. Apparently that was everyone else's plan too. And I understand now what people mean when they refer to it as line con, because like you stand in a line for almost everything. I think maybe there were 2 panels that I went in that I didn't have to wait in a line for, but really other than that, everything for all 4 days I had to stand in a line. And so unfortunately the authors that I wanted to get autographs for was just not in the cards. Too many other people wanted that as well. I did get the opportunity. I could have gotten TJ Klune's autograph, but unfortunately they were giving out like tickets for when you could go, and meet with the author and get their autograph. Fortunately, the time they had available for me was completely conflicting with something else that I had to do. Like, I bought other tickets for an evening event, and so I had to actually be going back to my hotel getting ready for that at the time that I would have gotten to meet with TJ Klune and get his autograph. So unfortunately that did not happen. I did almost get the arc for Travis Baldry's new book, which I was very excited about, but I was maybe 10 people too far in a very, honestly, it was a very short line. That was the Tor Books booth, I believe. Don't know how many copies they had. I was not that far back in line. What are you gonna do? They gave out the books as they had them, and unfortunately I was just a few people too far back. So did not get that, but I will just have to wait. I think his book is coming out in like 2 months or something like that, right? So it's not like I have to wait very long. It's fine. But I wasn't able to meet Felicia Day, but I did get to see her on a couple of her panels, which I was so excited about. I did get to briefly meet her at the end of her Spotlight on Felicia Day panel, which was awesome. She was she put on such an entertaining panel for both of the panels that I saw her in. She was, very entertaining, very sincere. If you've ever seen Felicia Day do anything, she was Felicia Day. She was Felicia Day about her appearance. She was promoting two different, or I think a couple different projects. She's got a new project coming out on Audible. It's called Third Eye. I will see if I can find the page for that. It's coming out in October. If I can, I'm sure I was just looking at it. I'll try to remember editing. Erica, put the link for that in the description below if you want to check it out. It's not really a book from what it sounds like. It kind of sounds like You know, back in the old days before we had TV and there would be like radio plays, kind of. It sounds like it's gonna be like that. There's a lot of other talent involved with it. I believe it's Sean Astin is involved, Neil Gaiman is on there, and Will Wheaton is, you know, I know that she's worked with him quite a bit too. So it's there's supposed to be a lot of talent involved. It's supposed to be very funny. So that is definitely on my list of what I'm going to check out. One of the things she was promoting. I also got to see Jeff Goldblum for the second time. Yes, that Jeff Goldblum. I'll probably put the sexy Jeff Goldblum picture up here just because I actually did at the convention. There was a booth that was selling these handmade items that were, she had some bags, she had oven mitts, pot holders, some different wallets, like different items like that, using kind of unique fabrics to do it. One of them was a sexy Jeff Goldblum pattern. So did I buy a sexy Jeff Goldblum oven mitt? Yeah, I did. And it's in my kitchen right now, and I didn't need another oven mitt, but like it was Jeff Goldblum on an oven mitt, so like yeah, I'm gonna buy that. But no, I saw Jeff Goldblum. He's in a jazz band, and so this is the second time I've seen his jazz band. The first time I saw him last year when they performed in LA. So this time he wasn't at the convention. He just happened to be in San Diego doing a performance. I believe it was the Balboa Theater, and it was a beautiful theater inside. I haven't been there before, obviously, because I haven't been to San Diego before. But anyway. He put on a great show, just like the last show. If you like Jeff Goldblum, this was full Jeff Goldblum. Like, he's a national treasure. He's just very endearing. And I mean, even before the show, like 30 minutes or so before the show officially starts, he comes out early and entertains the crowd as everyone is finding their seat. It's so fun. And so I will absolutely see him again if I get the opportunity. If you like Jeff Goldblum at all, strongly recommend that you go and see his jazz band performance if you get the opportunity. Not only is he very entertaining because of his personality, but the band is great. I mean, they're a great jazz band. So I can't recommend that enough. You want to just go out and have an entertaining, like, 2-hour show, go see Jeff Goldblum for sure. And like I said, this was my first time in San Diego, which I know probably sounds kind of weird since I've mentioned before that I'm from California, but just never had a reason to go to San Diego. I'm from Northern California, and there's just really nothing that far south. It was like, yeah, I gotta go to San Diego. So first time in San Diego, I thought it was great. It definitely felt very different from the rest of California to me. I could for sure see myself taking vacations there because it's just like really laid back, lots of, really nice people. Before the convention, we stayed in a totally different hotel. It was right on the ocean. And I'll try to put a picture here. There was one evening, I think it was our last evening there, where I took a picture of the sunset. It was just totally stereotypical. This picture does not do it justice. It was absolutely gorgeous. I had a great time in San Diego. It was everything that I was hoping for it to be as a vacation, and like I said, will 100% be going back. I'm really hoping to get badges again for next year. I would love to go next summer to the convention as well. I know it's hard for me to say because like this was my first San Diego Comic-Con, but I really did not miss not having the studios there. I had endless things to do, even though there was hardly any promotion of like film or television. Very few celebrities were at the convention, although I was lucky enough to go see Kevin Smith at one of his panels, and it was actually for the He-Man panel, which I was never like really into He-Man. Kind of made me want to watch the new He-Man, so I might do that. It's on Netflix. But overall, it was so fun. Downtown turned into basically just an extension of the convention. God, try saying that 10 times fast. So it was kind of just like a large street party for like 5 days. It was awesome. So much fun. If you have the ability to go, I can't recommend enough. It was one of the most fun vacations I've ever had. Especially, I think the part that I liked the most was just, like I said, how friendly everybody was. Like, you're in a line all the time, right? Because it's line con. So you're in lines multiple times a day for various things. You could be in a line for 10 minutes, you could be in a line for 2 hours. It just depends. Every single line I was in, I made line friends. Everyone was just friendly, open to chatting, and it was just fun. It was a fun little community, and I feel really lucky and really grateful that I got to go. So that is my Comic-Con Comic-Con update. Hot take. Comic-Con is awesome. Yeah. So, in case you didn't know, what else did I do this month? I went and saw the new Barbie movie, which I thought was awesome. You can see I've got my Barbie color nails. Actually, this is like the OPI. OPI came out with a bunch of Barbie shades. This is one of them. Went to see Barbie, thought it was great. I thought it was going to be a lot more lighthearted than it was, but I mean, I'm certainly not opposed to the direction that they went with the movie. I thought they did it really well, and I literally bought the soundtrack just for just for the Ryan Gosling version of Push by Matchbox 20. Oh my god. That alone did it for me. I'm not really like I'm not into the kind of music that's on the soundtrack, but I bought the soundtrack just to hear Ryan Gosling singing that. That was one of the best things I've ever heard of my life. I did also see the new Indiana Jones, which I really liked that, although I know there's like a lot of debate as to whether this was a good movie or not. I don't know. I enjoyed it. I also do plan to see Oppenheimer and Haunted Mansion. I wasn't able to do Barbenheimer, unfortunately, but I might do Haupenheimer, the Haunted Mansion and Oppenheimer, but I'll probably do Oppenheimer first to end on the high note of Haunted Mansion. Anyway, I also was supposed to go to concerts, like an all-day festival in a couple of days, but I don't even know if that's going to go on because it's like unbearably hot here, just like it is in a lot of the country and the world right now. So I don't know if that's even going to be going on. I'm supposed to do that in a couple of days from now. I guess we'll see. I've mostly been hibernating in my house because it's suffocating to even step outside. So that's where we're at. Let's get talking about some books though. That I know you're sitting there and you're like, Erica, that is all good and well, but like, what about the books, dude? All right, let's talk about the books. Let's talk about the books. As I said before, reading was not my top priority for the month of July, so I didn't get through that many, and it's just the way that it is. You know, real life, all that good real life experience stuff sometimes just supersedes. We will go ahead and talk about the books that I was able to finish in July, and then I will talk about my TBR that I have planned for hopefully wrapping up in August. I actually have like a schedule written out in my calendar because I've got some videos that I want to do. So I'm cautiously optimistic that I'm gonna be able to catch up on some of the things that I wanted to do before, but let's talk about what I read. What I read in July. I always start with the books that I like the least and end with the books that I like the best. I've only got 3 books this month, so what are you gonna do? But unfortunately, the first book, I did give it 2 stars. It's River Woman, River Demon. This is by Jennifer Givhan. I will put it up here. I borrowed it from the library, and I had a lot of high hopes for this one going in because the premise sounded awesome. It's supposed to be about our main character, who is a bruja, and I apologize if I mispronounced that. I don't speak Spanish despite being from California, so I know that I butchered that. I really struggle with the Spanish J. But anyway, she is a witch. She's a magic user, and her husband is she refers to him as a magic man. He is a professor at one of the universities in New Mexico, but he also has this side business of a magic shop where it sounds like he does hoodoo. Like I said, she refers to him as the magic man. One day, our main character is awakened after a drunken stupor, in the middle of the night, and because she thinks she hears screaming, so she runs out of her house. They live by the river. I believe it like crosses onto their property. So she runs towards the river, finds her husband down there over their female friend's dead body, and the question becomes, did either our main character or her husband kill their friend? Because our main character can't really trust her memory, and so it's unknown initially what exactly has happened here. So the cops arrive. They end up taking the husband into custody because they assume that he did it. And then our main character, the premise suggested she would be investigating what happened with this mysterious violent death of their friend in the river. What did I actually get? I got what is possibly the most unlikable main character that I've ever gotten in a book ever. And that made this book extremely hard to read. I'm going to elaborate on that, but I'm going to explain why I didn't just DNF this book, because knowing what I know now, I should have just DNF'd it, but I didn't, because she was incredibly unlikable from the beginning. Like, there was no period of time where I was like, yeah, this main character's awesome. No, she started out extremely unlikable. And I thought to myself, okay, there's a lot of opportunity for growth here. She's gonna be investigating a murder, right? And like trying to figure out if her husband killed their friend or whatever. So like there's opportunity for a lot of character growth, some interesting, because this is supposed to be like fantasy or magical realism. I'm like, ooh, are we gonna get like some hoodoo going on? You know, I was very interested in the premise. Unfortunately, the character did not become any more likable throughout the book, and in fact, I would say she got increasingly more unlikable, and I think that was not the intention of the author. That was my impression while reading. I believed the author wants you to root for this character, but also because I went on Goodreads, as one does, and I looked at some of the reviews. Well, the author felt the need to put her own review in the reviews for this book as a response to the negative reviews some people were leaving, because much like myself, the people who did not like this book, it really seems like the primary reason was just that the main character was so absolutely no redeeming qualities, completely unlikable. I'll give you alcoholic, like out of control alcoholic, to the point where she blacks out. She loses time. She's physically unwell. She's got 2 kids that she's supposed to be taking care of, but while her husband is working, she's home. She's supposed to be taking care of the kids. Instead, she's getting like blackout drunk. So like that automatically, she's not likable. She makes a lot of decisions through the book that expose her kids to a lot of trauma, and she has zero interest in providing them support or reassurance or safety. Like, their father has just been arrested for murder of a woman that these kids consider to be their aunt. And our main character at no point is like, gosh, you know, I really need to make sure my kids are okay, because like this is incredibly upsetting, stressful, completely turning their lives upside down. No, not at all. Our main character is instead completely self-absorbed, completely turns on her husband at the first chance, even like even though it started out being like, oh, I love my husband so much. He's the perfect husband. He's so amazing. He supports me, our entire marriage, in every way that a person could need support from their spouse. And the second she gets the opportunity, she completely betrays her husband in like every way that you can betray your spouse. So not rooting for her on that. She, instead of addressing like the massive problem of her husband is now in jail and about to face trial for this murder, she just ignores the lawyer's calls, tries to dodge dealing with anyone who wants to give her an update on what's happening with the case or with her husband. Just in every way that a character can be unlikable, she was unlikable. She had literally no character growth at all throughout the entire book. Like, no growth. It was just bad decision, like, endless bad decisions with no improvement, and I'm supposed to be rooting for her. I cannot. But like I said, the author went on Goodreads and left a review in response to the other reviewers who felt like I did, which was that this main character was just like not redeemable. And the author insists that we are not interpreting it correctly. So that leads me to believe she does want us as the readers to root for this character. I have to make the argument that I wasn't given anything that I felt like I could root for. I have no problem with problematic characters, you know, and seeing their growth. Unlikable characters, you see them go through things. Not everyone needs to be a likable protagonist. I can get down with a well-written anti-hero. This character was not an anti-hero. This was just a bad person. There was nothing to root for. I think one of the reviewers I read on Goodreads who also disliked this book for the same reasons I did, I think that the reviewer said something like, by the end, I was rooting for the main character to just like abandon the family to give them a chance at like being happy. I gotta say, I felt the same way. Like, she neglected her kids, she betrayed her husband, she took advantage of her sister. She was just a very unlikable person that I didn't feel and so that completely, that alone, if nothing else in the book had been an issue for me, that alone would have ruined the book, to be honest, because you gotta give me something. I gotta feel like there's something I'm rooting for in a main character, like something. Like, it can't just be a character that does nothing but make hurtful, destructive decisions. Like, yeah, I gotta have something. So that was the main driver of why I didn't like this book. But I didn't feel the writing was bad, but I felt like there was a lot of it where I just found myself rolling my eyes, and I wrote down a quote because I wanted to be able to give an example of what was making me roll my eyes about this writing. So I'm gonna read it so you can understand like the kind of writing that was bothering me in this. He lavishes his arms around me, and his sleeves, still rolled from clearing the sink after dinner, expose the ropey cords of muscle in his forearms, which ripple like fish at the surface of a pond. This is the kind of language that permeated throughout this book, and if that didn't bother you, then the author's writing style you probably would be totally fine with. There's a lot of that passage I just read where I'm like, what does this even mean? He lavishes his arms around me? What does that mean? What does that mean? The ropey cords of muscle in his forearms. First of all, ew. Ew. But like, what does that mean? Ropey cords of muscle? What does that mean? So I didn't love the language like this that was used in this book. I found it very distracting. I don't like that. Whatever this style is not for me. There was also extremely minimal use of fantasy or magical elements, which I found incredibly disappointing. I thought that it was a huge missed opportunity for this book, where the main character is a witch and the husband is a magic user to the point of owning a magic shop. But there's only a couple of points in this book where there's actual like any kind of magical or fantasy elements really involved. In fact, for most of this book I was like, is this actually is this just literary fiction or a thriller? Like, because there was nothing. So I felt like it was a huge missed opportunity to take those concepts and weave them into the story. I thought that would have been really interesting if the author had chosen to do that. Aside from the main character being really unlikable through the entire book and like no redeeming qualities, and I can't emphasize that enough, I found she had no redeeming qualities. I also found the buildup in this story to be really slow, but then when we got to the end, there was just like kind of like a pretty convoluted and entirely too coincidental series of events to explain what was actually going on, like what had happened. And so I did not feel that the slog through the book, through the unlikable character, was even worth it. Unfortunately, I didn't feel the ending was believable. Yes, I know this is like a magical realism book, but you know what I mean? Like it was, in the context of the story, the ending was just not, it was not believable. I found like there was a lot of plot holes that did not get filled. You have to ignore a lot of what is going on in order to buy into the end of this book, which I'm just not the kind of person that can do that. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people who are, but it's just not. This book was not for me. There's a lot of people who do seem to really enjoy this book. I had high hopes for this book. There's a couple of components in this book that for me are important, and unfortunately just were not delivered in a way that I could enjoy this book. So that is why I had to give this 2 stars. Who might like this book? Well, if you don't care that a character is completely unlikable and like really doesn't have any growth or redeeming qualities, like if that doesn't bother you, you could probably get into this book. Because that was the biggest hurdle for me, and I just couldn't overcome it. But if it's not a problem for you, you might like this. Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I did finish this one. I really liked it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. And I understand now why everyone likes TJ Klune. I believe that a lot of people refer to his books as like cozy fantasy. I didn't really feel like this was cozy, at least not in a traditional sense. When I think of books that are like cozy, it's books that bring me, like they make me feel good while I read it. I'm sure that that's not the official like professional literary definition of a cozy category, but that's just how I think about it. Like when I read a cozy mystery, they're mysteries where I'm like, the stakes are low. I don't really have to like feel anything negative here while I'm reading this. I'm just like, I'm feeling good. I'm reading this story. And so that's how I feel about like cozy genres. This didn't make me feel bad, but it was definitely an emotional read. I don't know that it will be an emotional read for everybody. For me, it was a very emotional read. It deals heavily with death, and basically this book, I thought, again, the premise really interesting. We follow our main character who is dead. He dies in like the first chapter, I think, of the book, so not a spoiler. Not a spoiler at all. We follow him in his journey into the afterlife, where we get to meet his Reaper, who, you know, tries to comfort him or provide him a little bit of guidance after his death. And the Reaper leads our main character to the ferryman, which has been assigned to him, who is going to ultimately lead him from this world and allow him to move on to whatever is next, right? The great beyond. So really interesting premise. I enjoy seeing stories that involve like Reapers and the characterization of death itself. I think that's interesting. The main character, most of the characters in this book go through a lot of difficult emotional experiences that I think the author does so well in relaying that to the reader, making you, at least it made me, man, there are parts in this book that I cried. It was not just because things were, you know, touching, though I did. Oh, this book made me cry. Oh my god, like it's so touching. But it also made me cry like, oh my god, that's like devastating. So for me, the emotional range of this book, that's why I hesitate to be like, yeah, this is cozy, because Usually I'm not crying at something that's cozy. Usually something that's cozy doesn't evoke that kind of emotion for me. So while I certainly was not unhappy reading this book, I felt very, there were a couple parts of this book where I felt like emotionally drained reading it because, like I said, death, very serious subject matter. And while there was a lot of lightheartedness to this story, the author does go into the more difficult emotions around death and the uncertainty and regrets that you might have and experiences that touched you and like all of these things. So if you're okay with that, then you probably would love this book. I thought this book was excellent. I will definitely be continuing to read more TJ Klune. I'm glad that I grabbed his books. I do have, I think, 3 of his other books pending to be read right now. The next one I will probably read is House on the Cerulean Sea. I also want to read In the Lives of Puppets because that one I do have on my Reddit fantasy bingo card for this year. For I guess now is a good time, I will just briefly interject. I am participating in the Reddit fantasy sub bingo for this year. It starts on April 1st. So it started April 1st of this year. It ends March 31st of next year. So if you want to do it too, there's totally still plenty of time. By all means, I will put a link down in the description box if you want to check out the post information on the Reddit sub if you want to participate as well. But I believe one of my Reddit bingo squares I have filled in to read In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. So maybe that'll be next before House in the Cerulean Sea. Anyway, bottom line, really did enjoy TJ Klune's book here and plan to read more from this author. And I thought that frankly, I thought that that was going to be my most liked book for the month, but I finished this last one and I've been pondering it, and I thought, it's nowhere near as deep as Under the Whispering Door, but the level of enjoyment that I had while I was reading it, honestly, it's a 4-star book, but I'm ranking it just a little bit, just a hair higher than Under the Whispering Door. It's book 1 of the Innkeeper Chronicles. It's Clean Sweep by Ilona Andrews. I believe I may have added this to my reading list as a suggestion from one of the many Reddit reading subs that I subscribe to. But so I read this one. I borrowed it from the library. I read it. It just took a few hours. It's a super short book. Very easy read. The writing is not complex, but man, this was just so enjoyable. It was so enjoyably good. I got into it and I just accepted. I accepted what this book was giving to me and I ran with it, and I'm so glad that I did. It was such an enjoyable read. It follows our main character, Dina. She's an innkeeper, and an inn in this world is similar to a B&B in our real world, except that it welcomes guests from like all over the universe or the galaxy. I'm still not entirely sure, but basically not just Earth beings are staying at this inn. And so if you stay at an inn, you're under the protection of the innkeeper. The inns are generally seen as neutral ground. They're pretty respected by like everyone that is aware of them, which does not include Earth humans generally. So one of the responsibilities of our innkeeper, who actually is based in Texas, her inn is in like a small town in Texas, she works very hard to keep her inn inconspicuous. She doesn't want any of the locals to realize what's actually going on in this inn. And one day, as she's recently taken over this inn, so she's trying to build the business up and get it a good reputation, she encounters a very dangerous alien creature around her neighborhood, and she, in an effort to figure out what is going on and get this creature like dealt with, she has to team up with a werewolf and a vampire, and maybe there's a little bit of a love triangle going on, although it is not at all a Twilight situation. But it's actually more, I would say it's more lighthearted in the same way of like the Sookie Stackhouse series from Charlaine Harris. It was definitely more that kind of kind of a lighthearted kind of a thing. I really liked the characters in this book. I thought that their personalities were written to be fun and kind of weird, and I really enjoyed the main character in this. She's pretty young. I believe she's in her early 20s, and she has to be independent because her parents are gone. It sounds like they've disappeared. So she doesn't really have a support system, and so she's working very hard to develop her inn and make it something that her parents ultimately would be proud of, because they were innkeepers as well. And so she's so smart, she's resourceful, she doesn't take herself too seriously, and I just had so much fun reading this. The book itself, like, it's not taking itself that seriously. I just really enjoyed the lighthearted tone to this. You're supposed to be reading and just be along for the ride on this weird adventure. You're finding out about the magic that exists, but is it really magic? Is it science? Don't know. There's a lot of alien interaction going on, and all kinds of possibilities for where this series could go. I think that there's maybe 5 books in the series, maybe more. I'll have to double check. I'm definitely going to keep reading. It was just such a fun thing to read. It took me into a new world, and the writing style was immersive. There was a lot of, you're learning as you're going along. There was very little exposition to try to, explain like what is happening. So you're learning along. You're just kind of thrown into it to see what is going on with the main character and the two unlikely partners that she's teamed up with to try to hunt down this dangerous alien species guy that's like come to her small town in Texas. So I will absolutely be reading the rest of the books in this series. This was just really enjoyable. There was some action in this. There was like sci-fi, some adventure, a little bit of mystery. It was fun. It was just a fun little fast read. It took me, I don't know, maybe like 4 hours to read. It was pretty fast. So if you're looking for something that's lighthearted, you probably would really like this. The only criticism that I have really is that the writing in a couple of places was a little bit clunky. Like, it could have gone through some more editing. There's only a couple of spots where the writing was like, this is oddly stated, and it probably should have been changed with an edit process. We'll see if the rest of the series is like that. I know that this author, which I believe this author is actually like a husband and wife team who writes together. I know that they've had a ton of other books published since this one, I believe. So maybe it's different. We'll see as time goes on, but absolutely nothing that I thought took away from my enjoyment of the book. It was just really the only thing where I was like, well, I guess if I had to criticize something, it would be that there's a couple spots where it probably could have been cleaned up a little bit with an edit, but no big deal. It's still an incredibly enjoyable read. Very surprisingly, my favorite book for the month over TJ Klune. So yeah, there you go. That's all that I've got actually for what I read in July. I know I said it wasn't that many. It wasn't that many. What are you gonna do? But I do have some books up for my TBR for July. For July? No, we just got done with July. I have some books that are ready to go for August, so I'll briefly mention those. All right, I've got these 3 books. These are all on my Reddit fantasy bingo card, so I'm gonna try to get through them, especially because these I also was in the mood to read for the summer, and so before the end of summer I would like to get through these. So I've got Daughter of the Pirate King. Next I've got The City of Brass, which is, I believe, the start of a trilogy, but I'm at least gonna try my very best to get through this first one. And I also have Spirits Abroad by Zen Cho. I've been looking forward to this. It's a collection of short stories by an author that I really liked the other book that I read from her, Blackwater Sister. So going to be working on this one as well. The Hero of Ages, of course, by Mr. Brandon Sanderson. This is the 3rd installment in the first Mistborn trilogy. So once I got this done, then I will be officially finished with that first Mistborn trilogy and moving on to my next book. I do plan to do a video for this probably towards the end of the month, maybe, just like I've done with the other 2 books that I read in the trilogy. we'll talk about it. Witch King by Martha Wells. Did I get to see Martha Wells at Comic-Con? No, unfortunately I did not. My friend did though. My friend that I went with, I believe, went to see her and also got her this book, but like a different version of it, obviously. So I think that he did get it and he got it signed. I'll have to double check, but yeah, this is on my list. I intended to get through it before, but what are you gonna do? So on my TBR. Man, I've been working on this one for like 2 months. Have I made like any progress? Not really. I don't know what's going on. Whatever. I'm determined to finish this by August 31st. This shall not be carried to another month, especially because I really want to get started on my Napoleon biography. Especially, I want to be able to finish that before the movie Napoleon comes out, which I think that's coming out in November. So that's high priority. This is not that long. I've got to just be able to crack it open and finish it. So that's very high priority for this month. My cat has woken up from her nap and she's been very clingy since I got home from my trip, so she might try to make an appearance here. The last one, I am currently reading it. It is Empire of Storms. It's, I believe, the 5th book in, I think the 5th book in the Throne of Glass series. It doesn't matter. It's another book in the Throne of Glass series. I, of course, am slowly making my way through the Throne of Glass series, so I am going to be doing a video on this just like I've done for the others, where it's like reading vlog. You know, I'll do updates like every quarter of the way through the book, and then like, you know, little final thoughts situation at the end. So far, I think the start of this one has been a little bit more difficult to get going with than the others. I'm not sure if it's because there's a lot of different plot lines going on right now. I'm hoping it will come together, because normally the other books by this author, except for the last one that I read, which I think was Queen of Shadows, but the other books from her, she does a solid beginning and a solid ending, and it's the middle of the books where I'm like, oh god, this is kind of hard to get through. Whereas right now, this one, the beginning has been a little bit difficult for me to like get into. So we'll see. It just off to a little bit of a bumpy start, but that's just my first impression. So this should be finished hopefully within the next couple of days. That's all that I have for you today. This was kind of an unexpectedly longer video, especially since I didn't have that many books that I read in July, but that's, I don't know. I'm feeling chatty. So here we are. Let me know your thoughts on any of the books that I talked about today. Have you read any of these books? Do you agree? Do you disagree? How do you feel about it? Let me know. Did you read any good books in July? Anything that you really liked? I know we're like more than halfway through the summer now, so summer reading almost over. It's also why I'm trying to get through some of those other summer books. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Have you ever been to Comic-Con? Let me know what your experience was. Did you have an awesome time too? Do you have any desire to go to Comic-Con? Let me know. Let's chat. Love to get comments. So let me know. Like I said, I do have videos planned through the month, so hopefully you should also have another video in a couple of days after this. So you can be looking forward to that. But I do want to thank you for coming by today. I always appreciate it. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. I'll see you next time. Thanks.